Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. This is our second chance. We're going to do this. I've got Jason Jones on the air. He is a best-selling author. He is a human rights, you guys are going to laugh. He's an author. He's a human rights activist. He's a political scientist. He's a movie maker. So how do you fit all those things together? But I think that the thing that's most important is his fight for humanity. He fights for the least of these. And he has been to probably every war-torn area in our past 10, 15 years. We'll find out. And today we were talking about his dispatches from the Great Campaign. Boots on the ground. What have you seen? Because what he's seen is often different than what we're getting from the media, the narratives. And Jason, let me just say one more thing, because Jason is really pro-life. He's the founder of the Vulnerable People Project. And I say he will defend any vulnerable person. He's very pro-life, whether you are Israeli or Palestinian, whether you are Ukrainian or Russian, whether you are American, rich, poor, and a Hollywood elite, or a peasant, a mere peasant. If you are needy, if you're vulnerable, if you're hungry, Jason Jones and his organization goes in, they feed. They have had bullets come at them. They have lost souls who have fought for all of this. He's lived a life worthy of his calling, and that's my words, not his. Jason Jones. Sorry for that kind of long bio, but that's who I see you as.
That's your fault. My mom wrote it probably. I don't know.
Probably.
But thank you, Dr. Bacon. It's good to be with you.
Christine, go with Christine.
Christine, we did a great show, but because of me, and I had to do it for my car because I was delayed at a doctor's office. It's the best interview anyone ever gave me. And it had such beautiful, empathetic questions, but the connection was so poor. We have to redo it. So I apologize for that. It was literally, I was so excited for the interview, and then wah wah. But here we are.
Well, you so I know your story. I mean, it all started when you had a girlfriend years ago who aborted your child without you even having to say so. And that kind of angered you. She was
Without her
forced
having
to.
to say so.
Without her having to say so.
What the bigger tragedy is, without her having to say so, because I was in high school and I was 16, about to turn 17. So on my birthday, I joined the Army. And while I was in basic training, her father took her to get a forced third trimester abortion. He was a prominent
third trimester. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, he was a prominent doctor in Chicago area, and he took her to Chicago Masonic Hospital, where his friend did this against her will. It was utterly devastating to her. And she called me at Fort Benning and just cried through a roll of quarters. I couldn't say a word to her. She just wailed. And I say, I didn't really know anything about abortion. Never thought about it. Didn't really know it was a thing until I found out I lost my daughter. And we know it was a daughter.
Because it was third trimester.
Well, the abortionist looked up and said, by the way, you had a little girl, to my high school girlfriend. Yeah. So
why would he do? Oh, diabolical. Sorry.
Yeah. And then her father bought her a bird, said you can put your mothering instincts that nature will give you because you were pregnant on this bird. It was very strange. But for me, that was the inciting incident that now I'm a young soldier, young infantryman, that, revealed to me the fragility of life. And it was then, as a 17-year-old boy in the Army, I didn't know there was a pro-life movement. I knew nothing about that. I just knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life trying to defend children from violence and the violence of abortion.
How did you jump into the war areas? And because when I look at you, and again, I look at you as like this rock star. I know you probably don't, you're one of those that sees it, but then you get in. I mean, you've fed thousands and thousands of people. You've taken your foundation and you've gone into the front lines. I mean, so many of us would kill to just be able to hand a bottle of water to someone who really, really needs it, instead of just putting money in an envelope and giving it to an organization like you. But you've gone there, you've seen that, you've seen the tears, you've seen the blood, take us from that abortion to there.
I'm glad you put it that way, Christine, because there is a gift that comes from my work, that I'm doing what everyone longs to do, right? I founded an apostolate that I was a young soldier. So to me, abortion and suffering in Darfur or Gaza or Chinese occupied East Turkestan or Nigeria or Congo or Syria or India or Nicaragua, where the church is suffering so horribly now, I saw them as just one thing, that people are placed in impossible situations, exposed to ideological, violence driven by ideology. And I want to help them. And they're strong people. I always say that the people we serve are very strong. They're stronger than me. If an Olympic swimmer is drowning in the middle of the ocean and I'm in a boat and I come tooling by, I'm just weak old Jason Jones and I'm rescuing an Olympic swimmer. It's kind of the embarrassing situation that we find ourselves in all the time at the Vulnerable People Project. We're helping very strong, capable, kind, brilliant people, families, but they've been placed in impossible situations. And so our apostolate we see as like our rescue boat. And so we're the fragile, frail human beings that we are in the apostolate can really serve people much better than us. And that's the grace. And our donors, like you said, they would like to be in the boat, grabbing the guy and pulling him in. We all want to be that. And in fact, I can say I'm not even that guy. The people who work for me are that guy. I'm just the logistics guy. I'm the guy that manages the organization. And so sometimes I have what they call imposter syndrome, because I don't want you to look at me like I'm some great swashbuckling hero. The real heroes, for example, today in Gaza, we're throwing a kids' day in Gaza where we're delivering shave ice to the orphans. We literally put in a swimming pool in a concrete and in a gravel truck. We turned into a pool, and we're feeding thousands of people. And we have clowns and music and murals and crayons and something we've been working on for 9 months to make happen, this Kids Day. And I'm here drinking a latte. The heroes are contractors, partners, and volunteers on the ground who risk their lives day in and day out. And so you'll see a picture of me there for a week, and I look like some kind of brave hero, but I was there for a week. And I went there, I put together a program, or whatever the reasons I have to go there are, but it's in and out. And so I'm embarrassed. I don't want to be perceived incorrectly. I'm the founder of this organization, but the heroes,
Boots on the ground.
true heroes, you can think of the Doctors Without Borders or the World Food Kitchen people or the logistics folks that work with us. These are the real heroes. And so I'm in that, but I'm a part of a chain of heroes, because I have to work with order and discipline, and our donors who send us checks work for order and discipline, and we're all a part of this team. So it takes all of us to save lives. I have a donor, he's one of my most generous donors, and very like holy, ordered man, the kind of man we all wish that we could be. And he has like this beautiful office and like the nicest skyscraper in Chicago. And I remember being in his office, and he had like a packed lunch, like a little sandwich in a lunch bag. And I don't pack my lunch, I'm embarrassed to say. Like, if I'm either going to come home and eat or go out to eat. And I thought, this man who donates so generously to us saves money every day by packing a sandwich in a little lunch bag and bringing it to his office in the nicest office building in Chicago. And so he lives a life of order and discipline in his philanthropy. And our guys on the ground live a life of order and discipline that do the life-saving work. And my team here in the United States has to work with order and discipline. So we're members of the mystical body of Christ. But at the end of the day, the ones that are doing the daring things, the ones that the truth is we all wish that we could do.
Yeah.
But we have different roles to play. And I would rather have my donors donating than wanting to go on a field trip to feel the exhilaration. I think there's more honor in that they give the aid without, they're a part of the team, but they don't get to ever hold up the Super Bowl trophy. But it's their trophy too,
Yeah. And I don't want to interrupt, but because everything you're saying is so powerful. But while you're speaking of those heroes, you just lost 2 people in an explosion last week, didn't you, in Gaza?
Oh yeah, and I love these guys so much. And we lost someone in Nigeria defending seminarians from Boko Haram 6 weeks ago, and it's been a rough couple of years. But it's just the nature of the work, and the first thing I do every morning when I wake up, which is a habit I have to break myself of. I guess I think I should probably give myself 30 minutes of just being a human, but I really, my eyes open, I grab my phone, I turn it on, and I go to Signal and I go to WhatsApp and I read the reports from our different teams. And I see the photos because, when I wake up, I'm getting their end of the day report from the day before. And, you know, sometimes they're beautiful things. Like today, we rescued a family from Gaza that was severely injured in a bombing, and it took a lot to make happen. And 2 weeks ago, it was two of my guys died. And that was the day that we were supposed to do something very big. That was the day we were going to distribute, hundreds of cans of baby formula, something I've been working 9 months on. But rather than seeing pictures, I was looking forward to seeing the pictures of the baby formula delivered, because we take pictures of all of our deliveries. But instead, I found out that our warehouse was destroyed. 5,000 cans of baby formula were gone, tons of food, and two beautiful human beings lost their lives as well.
Was that an intentional bombing that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, not that I can say with certainty, but I know this, that the Israeli Defense Force, they know who we are. They even said to a reporter from NPR, they're very well aware of who we are and they know who we are. They knew which trucks were our trucks, and they knew where our trucks were delivering the baby food. We had that warehouse for several months, and the bombing took place hours before the baby formula, hours after the formula arrived, and a few hours before it was to then be distributed. So one has to ask oneself, was it intentional or was it just a catastrophic failure? But when you look at the mass civilian casualties, and then just yesterday, sort of spitting in the face of Cardinal Pizzaballa and the Orthodox Patriarch and Pope Leo, the state of Israel declared that the churches now are considered the battlefield, but yet the churches, with the support of the Holy Father and the Patriarch, have refused to evacuate. So in the coming days,
That's a good thing, right? That the churches have refused to evacuate. I want to make sure I'm following that right.
Well, I would say it's their choice, but they can become martyred. And the reality is, we may see in the coming days the absolute slaughter by the state of Israel of one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, Christians that descend from the people that were in the upper room when the Holy Spirit descended, when the church was birthed. These are the descendants of the Jews that accepted Christ at the time of Christ in the apostolic age. So it's quite sorrowful, and it's hard for a lot of the folks to hear, because it doesn't fit with the narratives that we've been fed through Protestant media and through very powerful political organizations that are part of our tribe. But the reality is, if you listen to the priests and Catholic laity from the occupied West Bank and from Gaza, if you listen to Cardinal Pizzaballa and Pope Leo, Israel is waging a brutal war of ethnic cleansing, and it seems as if almost cleansing the Christians from Gaza is their first priority.
And that makes sense, because that's Satan's number one goal from the beginning of time, is he wants to destroy the Christians. And so we make it look like it's the Israelites against the Palestinians, but it's the Palestinian Christians that are going down. If you can destroy the presence of Christ.
That they're alone. They're alone. And I'm not going to say their names, but people can just do Google searches. Think of the most prominent Catholics with the biggest platforms right now. Go look and see if they have ever once said anything for the Christians in Gaza. And I would say that you should never listen to or follow. I don't care if it's a layman you respect or a bishop that runs cover for the slaughter of the Christians of Gaza. It's coward. And it's coward.
I'll tell you, it's Candace Owens is the only one I know that is publicly defending them, saying this is not eugenics. You said the word, I just forgot.
Genocide or ethnic cleansing. And
thank you. My mind.
Genocide, you have to display intent. I think it's very easy to demonstrate intent.
She's getting destroyed just by saying, look at what's going on, and saying it publicly. But what's happening is her platform is growing. It's growing because
what's funny is she was getting destroyed, but now those who are peddling lies are being destroyed. something has happened over the past several months where there's been a massive shift where we would post our work and we would just be attacked. And now we're being celebrated, which is it's uncomfortable for me. And when someone kind of comes in to attack us, I watch them get ripped apart like piranha. And it's strange the way the pendulum swings. And that's why with the work we do at the Vulnerable People Project, we're not looking to be popular. In fact, the great Catholic anthropologist Rene Girard said, when you live a life in solidarity with the vulnerable, you become as vulnerable as they are. If you go around town kissing lepers, no one's going to want to kiss you. If you go around kneeling down next to women caught in the act of adultery, you might take a rock to the head. And when you stand with a community that's suffering ethnic cleansing at the hands of powerful, our quote unquote ally, you're going to see power against you. Ecclesiastes 4:1, the teacher said, I looked all over the world and all I see is oppression. And on the side of the oppressor is power. And on the side of the oppressed, there is no one. And when the teacher, as we're told in scripture, who we believe, I guess, is Solomon, wrote this, to think the richest man in the world said this at the time, it was a sad and true statement. But today, something is different. You can look all over the world and see oppression, and on the side of the oppressor is power, for sure. But the mystical body of Christ should always stand with the oppressed, not worldly power. And so when you stand with the oppressed, one should expect to suffer along with the oppressed. But solidarity is contagious. Bravery is contagious.
Yes, it is.
So when you stand with the vulnerable community or the child, I think of working in the pro-life movement in the late 80s and early 90s, even within the Republican Party, it was very controversial. People would say, Jason, I don't mind that you're pro-life, or it's okay for you to be pro-life. Just tone it down a little bit. But or don't say it like this, say it like that. Like, know your place.
Yeah.
And whenever you
those of us who have sold our souls, do it like we do it.
Yeah, which is funny. We won and we're winning on that, right? So now it's quite easy to be pro-life. It's quite easy in the Republican Party. It's quite easy to be pro-life in America. It's even easy to be pro-life on college campuses, thanks to the work of wonderful organizations like Students for Life of America. And but it was challenging. It was challenging a year ago for me to call the state of Israel out for its ethnic cleansing in Gaza. But fortunately, I'm maladjusted and not too concerned about what other people say. And but today it's not hard at all. In fact, I say this tongue in cheek. It'll probably come back to bite me, and somebody edits this. When people were telling me how brave I was early on for serving the Christians in Gaza, I said I'm not brave at all, because history, the ball is going to bounce in our favor, and the ball is going to bounce soon. And the ball has already bounced. And I would joke that the ones that are really brave are the ones that are supporting the ethnic cleansing, because history is going to judge them harshly, and history is around the corner waiting to do just that. So, the rhythm of history is picked up. The pace is picked up. The beat is picked up. And so when it maybe, we're fighting abortion in the 70s and 80s and 90s, it wasn't maybe until the mid, 2008, 2010, where becoming pro-life we saw the tipping point. And now with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, still a lot of work to do.
Yes.
I opposed the invasion of Iraq, and that was a controversial thing to do at the time, and as a young conservative, and I was chairman of the Young Republicans at the time. But I was echoing St. John Paul, who said that toppling Saddam, although he was a bad dude, would lead to the slaughter of Christians in Iraq and other minority groups. And in fact, exactly that happened. And I don't think you can meet anyone today that would say that toppling Saddam Hussein was a good idea. And if you do, they really haven't been paying attention to the news since 2005, or 6.
Yeah.
So, it's just, but what's beautiful about our faith, and I am so grateful to be Catholic,
Me too,
is that we know our vocation. It's simply to love God and to love our neighbor. And so in my book, Dispatches from the Great Campaign, It's really just love letters. It's my work in Hollywood, my work on political campaigns, my work in Ukraine and Sudan and Gaza. But it's all the same. It's just to defend my neighbor who is vulnerable from violence by celebrating their dignity and inspiring solidarity, whether it's through a Hollywood movie or whether it's through delivering shave ice to orphan children in Gaza. Even my activism, we are a small apostolate, relatively speaking.
How
And
many
pardon?
ish? How many people ish?
Well, that's a tough question because we have a lot of volunteers and contractors. So, like around the world, we could have 1,000 volunteers, but our United States-based staff is just 4 people.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
But you
I
do
mean
have
it's
thousands. Yeah.
yeah, but we like in Kabul, Afghanistan, 13 people work for me, and we have teams in Gaza and in Nigeria and da da da. But small,
But
right?
mighty. Kind of like
Yeah,
David.
and even if it sounds like a lot, like we've delivered thousands of tons of food and coal in the winter months to the widows and orphans of our Afghan allies, men who fought alongside the U.S. forces who died, and now their families have fallen to the bottom of society and are starving, freezing to death in Afghanistan in the winters. So we have a program called Coal for Christmas, where we support Christians and Afghan allies and their widows and orphans in Afghanistan. And people go, you deliver thousands of tons of food and thousands of tons of coal. It's not a lot, you know. It's not a lot. It sounds good in a press release or in a donor email, but to be clear, you can think of a
The
country's
drop in the ocean. Yeah.
drop in the ocean. But what we're hoping to do is through this drop in the ocean, the fact that we go through these, it's not easy to do these things, getting coal and tons of coal and food into mountainous villages in Afghanistan where there are no roads. Uh, um, so through sort of this fortitude, it's to communicate their dignity and worth, to let them know they're loved.
Yeah, but
Bring
just like with Candace Owens, courage begets courage. What you're doing is causing one other person to go, well, if they're doing that, I can take coal too. I can take it to this one house. And then another person watches them. And if they're willing to lose their life, if they're willing to risk their family, if they're willing to risk their income, because the Vulnerable People Project did it, because someone spoke out against untruths, because someone stood up against Goliath, no matter how much they're going to get persecuted. That's what's contagious. That's what I've learned about what Jesus said. It's how the Catholic Church went from 12 men to every country in the world. And every other nation has tried to destroy the religion,
and the
destroy
known
the
world
country,
and the
destroy the
known
proponents.
world and the known world at the time in a generation. Like wherever the world was within a generation, wherever they knew the world was, they reached.
They went.
I mean, the apostles themselves reached as far as India, and which is unbelievable. There are Christian communities, first century Christian communities in India, Iran,
Yeah.
Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan,
I was
Ethiopia.
reading about the apostles and which ones went to which countries.
St.
And they mentioned
Thomas,
some of those countries. And I'm
St.
like,
Thomas
whoa.
went to India, brought the gospel from the Holy Land to India. Yeah. And what's interesting is that's where the church is suffering the most right now. And those of us Christians with our blonde hair and blue eyes, so many of them, like this guy from the Babylon Bee said the Palestinian Christians weren't really Christians. Like, I think he was saying that because they were Catholic. I don't know. But to say that the genetic descendants of the apostles, and by the way, the Palestinian Christians will be the first to tell you, none of that matters because we've all been grafted in.
Right.
And we're the mystical body of Christ. But when you look at the myth and the ethno-nationalist ideology behind Christian Zionism, it should rock you a little bit to understand that those who are suffering most in Gaza right now, the Christians, and in the West Bank, are the literal descendants of the apostles, the first to accept Jesus. And they were from within the Jewish community mostly. There were some Arabs we know, and even in the book of Acts, there were Arabs in there. And second century, whole Arab tribes began to convert long before our ancestors were converting. St. Thomas, I've been to first century churches in Iraq, founded by St. Thomas, and they're all the way to India. And so in India right now, we see the Hinduva The Hindu government, Modi's government, saying that Christianity is an invasive species to India. Well, Judaism and Christianity have been in India for 2,500 years. Judaism and Christianity for 2,000, much longer than it was in Europe, much longer than it was in northwestern Europe, obviously. So, yeah, it's interesting that the oldest Christian communities in the world, in India, in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Syria, in Ethiopia, they're in the midst of an existential crisis.
Yeah.
And we know from Paul's letters that when one part of the body hurts, we should feel it too.
And that's what I'm hoping we're doing by having you here talk about it, because you are illuminating things that, like we said earlier, the mainstream media won't. And, I have learned just have a podcast if you want to learn to take persecution. They'll be you, who's that blonde chick thinks she is? It's like, okay, whatever, and then it gives you some humble pie, but, doing what you're doing, yeah, you're going to be attacked. And so for me, my eyes started opening in 2018. I started learning about the infiltration in the church. I saw the McCarrick scandal. Then I started having my eyes opened about the deep state and the deep church. And instead of, it's really funny, I got my PhD at a Protestant university, Regent University here. It used to be CBN, Pat Robertson. And I used to think, oh, I don't want to go there because it's going to help me. I'm going to lose my Catholic faith, but it actually strengthened my Catholic faith, because that's what it does. When truth has to go after and combat the lies, it makes you go deeper. So the point I'm making with this is that now you're going in and you're seeing the truth, and you're helping us spread this truth even when it's unpopular. And it was you, I think I heard you telling a story on another podcast of just recently in Palestine. There was a young boy that came and he got shot, a little boy, after you had just given him food. Didn't he just get shot? Was you?
No, that wasn't me. That was an Army Green Beret, and really tragic. And of course, he was being calumniated and destroyed. Everyone, they say Pope Leo's a liar, Cardinal Pizzaballa is a liar, the Catholics in Gaza are lying, the Catholics in West Bank are lying. Well, here was an Army Green Beret. They sought to systematically undermine this guy's reputation and destroy him. And he seems like a very pleasant guy. Green Berets, excuse me, are always the most uncanny. They're so gentle. They're killers, but they're very gentle people generally. They're teachers and they're diplomats, they're statesmen, they're soldiers, the best warriors. So here is this gentleman soldier, this U.S. Army Green Beret, former Green Beret, retired, goes to Gaza with a contract to provide security for food distribution. Well, the food distribution system that they set up is utterly ridiculous, and it seems like it was designed to be torturous to the Palestinians. And this Green Beret reported that Israelis and other military contractors would shoot at civilians. And one young boy he fed and had a beautiful encounter that he filmed was then shot by, I forget if it was an Israeli or an American.
It was Israeli.
An Israeli sniper. So this is nothing new. Two Christian women, December 16th, 2023, two Catholic women in Holy Family Church's compound, just as they stepped outside the door of the church, but within the compound, were shot and killed by an Israeli sniper. And when their Muslim neighbors came running into the church compound to rescue the women, the IDF snipers shot at the men that were trying to rescue, the Muslim men that were trying to rescue these two wounded women. And so many people have been so heavily indoctrinated will say things like, well, it was Hamas dressed up as the IDF. People told me it was Hamas that bombed my aid shelter with a 2,000-pound bomb. Give me a break. Yeah. Our car was shot up yesterday or 2 days ago by a quadcopter operating in broad daylight all around the IDF. No one was wounded, but the car was lit up on both sides. People said that must have been a Hamas quadcopter. I mean, come on. It's just, we have to look the truth in the eye. In fact, right now in Israel, hundreds of thousands of Israelis are marching in the streets to end this war. And Haaretz, of course, but even in the times of Israel now, are calling for an end to this war and saying it's barbaric. It seems like only Americans that are part of our tribe, our friends, people watching the show even, because they consumed heretical Protestant propaganda or have been formed by sort of the right-wing intersectionality seeing as being pro-Israel is part like being pro-Second Amendment and being pro-life and being pro-Israel. That's just what we are, right? That's our team. Meanwhile, the state of Israel is decimating our co-religionists.
Yeah, and that's what we don't see on the mainstream media, and that's the part that attacks us. And again, call you and me unpopular, but there's this righteous anger that, rose up in me, which I'm sure must be in you. And that's why I'm like, I got to get this guy on the show again, because,
Thank you.
we righteous anger is good. Jesus had righteous anger, and we need to see these vulnerable people. We need to put our lives on the line. We need to get rid of our comforts. We need to remove our blinders. Heck, COVID helped so many of us see remove blinders and go on. Our governments don't care about us. They don't want our best interests. They don't care about our health. They don't care about our lives. You've got population control people in charge of vaccines, and let's go take them to Africa. Oh, the Africans can use it, but by the way, take our stuff, but you have to take abortion too. So our eyes are being open, and as you said earlier, I think the tide is turning, though I didn't see it until you said it. Well, I did kind of see it, but not to the degree until you said it. So I think God is doing his part. My personal opinion is God is creating his remnant. He's separating the wheat from the chaff. He's separating the sheep from the goats, so that when all hell breaks loose, literally everywhere, and literal hell, you're going to know who's chosen to be on the side of Christ and who's chosen to be on the side of the enemy. And it's not going to be pretty. It's all going to be a fight. But we have to be willing to do the fight, right? I mean, we're not going to have some rapture that's going to suck all the good guys up so we can sit up in heaven with popcorn and watching it happen to the bad guys. We have to do our part. Anyway, I know that's kind of a
I
silo
tell
forward.
my Protestant friends the rapture came. We call it the Assumption. Mary left. We're here. That's it. I mean, here we are. And no, you're right. And look, we're so blessed. I am the most easily. I'm a volatile personality. I'm easy to manipulate with images. When I saw the September 11th attacks, for example, my first thought was flatten Gaza. Like, this line went through my brain. I didn't say it out loud, but I thought it. And being so addled myself with anti-Arab and anti-Muslim propaganda my whole life, like we all have been, even though I thought I was aware of it, this thought comes to my mind. I wrote an article called Help, I'm an Anti-Palestinian Bigot.
I saw that.
Trying to articulate that we're humans. It's natural to have a reaction when you see something, Hamas commit such an atrocious crime against beautiful young people and take hostages. And it's easy to allow ourselves to become very angry at the state of Israel for bombing our churches and shooting and killing civilians. But we have to be disciplined. The British Army had a saying, the discipline of the soldier is the rage of the nation. And I've flipped it and said the discipline of the Christian is the love of Christ. And so when we get angry one way, then we get angry the other way, our emotions are being swung back and forth. We just need to stay focused and remember what is our vocation. It's very simple. I'm not an instrument of foreign policy for my government or any other country in the world. I'm a Catholic. I'm baptized, confirmed. I'm a priest. I'm a prophet. I'm a king. And my job is to share the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world. It's simply to love my neighbor and to love God. And when you look at heresies like Christian Zionism that deny, first and foremost, that Jesus Christ is the answer to all of the promises of Abraham, which promulgate this idea of we need the state of Israel so we can rebuild the third temple. Jesus Christ is the third temple. We're stones in the temple. The church is the New Jerusalem. It's the kingdom of God. It's the body of Christ. And the 3rd century, there was a heretic, an apostate actually, Julian the Apostate, who wanted to disprove Christianity. He said, I can do that by rebuilding the third temple. If I rebuild the temple, which all Christians knew in the 3rd century, was taken to the ground brick by brick, because the promises were promise made, promise kept. And our sins were forgiven through Jesus. We have a path to forgiveness through Jesus Christ, not through a red heifer.
Yeah.
And when Julian the Apostate, this is really some kind of interesting thing in human history. When Julian the Apostate went to build the third temple, literal fire and lava erupted from the earth and lightning fell from the sky, destroying it. And
Oopsies.
God will not be mocked. So to see Christians, God forbid, quote unquote Christians, because I think Christian Zionism is not a heresy, it's an apostasy because you're denying Jesus Christ in his completeness. There are those Catholics who have a tribal identity through decades of listening to right-wing talk radio or influenced by Christian Zionist pastors like Hagee or books like Jonathan Cahn. They drank this in thoughtlessly, and then they have cliches. They're thoughtless with their cliches, like when the two women were killed by snipers. Hannah Arendt, the great Jewish German philosopher who barely escaped Nazi Germany, she said that the promulgators of genocide, talking about the Holocaust, spoke in cliches. You could spot them by their cliches. Mm. And when two women get killed in a Holy Family Catholic Church, they must have been human shields. What? No. There must have been a tunnel behind the two women's backs. Like, it's just cliche. They don't stop. They don't think. It's thoughtlessness. It's the banality of evil, as Hannah Arendt would say. But we as Catholics must be thoughtful because it's our vocation.
Yeah. It's cognitive dissonance. If we change our, if our actions don't match our thoughts, we're supposed to change our thoughts to match our actions. And it's just people don't realize how much harder it is and how much we are all sucked in by it than we realize. Let me ask you this. And it's so funny, you're talking about all this stuff. Oh, and you're a filmmaker. It's like, how does that fit in here? But if you were in charge of the news agencies and you wanted to put out stories on all the channels that would fix the lie, let me say it this way, what would be the biggest lies that you would want to put on all the news channels and say, here's what you're being told today, here's the truth? What would you put out there?
Well, it's a great question, and it's actually startling because of my work. I don't think if I didn't have my job, I wouldn't have had this insight. So with the nature of my work, we can think of how the mainstream media has dehumanized the child in the womb, for example, right? Obviously. But it's something we do around the world. It doesn't matter, friend or enemy or ally or adversary. Let's look at Ukraine and Russia. I was in Ukraine 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, and every hospital bed, and the second biggest building I've ever seen in my life, the Pentagon being the first, was a former Soviet prison, had 2, 3, or 4 boys with no arms, no legs, and no eyes. Walked into one room, and this man with no legs and no arms and one eye had his newborn baby placed on his chest, and he could just kiss him, couldn't ever hug his child. How come we don't see the cost of war? You'll see influencers like Charlie Kirk promulgating anti-Muslim hate or Islamic hate. Why do we see this wave of sort of very strange, derogatory attacks at a large segment of American society now? It's puzzling. Why do we dehumanize the Palestinians to such an extent? I've had people say the most awful things about Palestinians to me, and that have no correspondence in the reality of my experience going there and being there and visiting them. Yeah. It's because I would humanize the victims of global violence, whether it's Israeli or Palestinian, whether, like as you said, whether I remember I was in Ukraine and there was a Russian tank on the front lines that had been destroyed. And one of my Ukrainian friends saw a tear come down my eye. He's proud to show me this T-70. I was an infantryman. I was an anti-tank guy for a while, so I know every tank in the world. It was a T-72 Russian tank. And I just looked at it, and you can tell it had been hit with a shape charge, probably from like a toe or something like that, which puts a pinpoint hole in it and then fills the tank with molten mercury and melts the soldiers. And just a tear came down my eye because I, as a father, and my son fought in Iraq, I thought of the boys that died, and I thought of the parents that got the call. When I go onto a battlefield, it says a Catholic apostolate. It's there to serve. I'm not there looking for enemies and friends. looking there to share the gospel of Jesus Christ in a challenging place. And I think the media does a very good job of dehumanizing not just our quote unquote enemies, but our quote unquote allies. Why don't we humanize the Ukrainians? You look very Ukrainian to me. You know,
I'm
why?
Polish, 87% Polish. It's
Oh,
right
there you
next
have
door.
it, neighbors. And, you know, why, if people knew, you know, just today, Kyiv was suffered the greatest bombardment since the war started. And, you know, I've been to Kyiv twice since the war started. And, you know, this war's just been going on forever. I wonder how they can take it, because I can't even take it from my house. You know, I drop in and drop out. I'm like, how are these people weathering this storm for so long?
God.
And why don't we tell their stories? You know, the people that hate war are warriors. And the keyboard warriors that celebrate every war and every act of violence, they've never seen a dead child. They've never smelled human flesh. They've never walked through a civilization in rubble. You know, they've never had the late night calls from their cohorts who are suffering and battling just not to do the ultimate act of despair. You know, so when I look at the war in Gaza, 100% of those children have PTSD. They said every kid under 18, every kid is a bedwetter. Kids are losing their hair just from stress of the constant drone presence. 18,000 kids don't have one living relative. But then on the flip side, these IDF soldiers are poorly trained with the best equipment in the world. They're making no headway against Hamas. Hamas is now larger than when the war started, because when you make 18,000 orphans, and there are more than 18,000 orphans, but when you make tens of thousands of orphans, you're also going to make enemies. And so now Hamas is larger than ever. So these poorly trained reservists, they're on the battlefield one day, a couple weeks later, they're back home in Tel Aviv. They're baristas or accountants or whatever they're doing. And then they go to the club or the bar with their friends on a Friday night. You know, then they're sitting at home in their house. They're sitting at home in their house with the trauma of war. They're alone with the trauma of war. And the statistics are startling on what's happening to the IDF soldiers when they go home. So as a Catholic, I don't, you know, to see so many people treat war as if it's a risk board game.
Yeah.
And not weighing the real human cost. When we don't have skin in the game, it's easy for us to talk about this. You know, when we're going to the Golden Corral, whatever we're doing, Buffalo Wild Wings watching the game. And while we're watching the game, tweeting, "No one's starving in Gaza." Blah. Come on. It's embarrassing to me. It's embarrassing to me, you know, how many Americans, because we've been so blessed with peace and privilege, are devoid of empathy to human suffering. And I wish I could bring them with me to see and smell and hear war. And that's something I hope you get from dispatches from the Great Campaign, that I'm repulsed by. Where I used to wear my VPP hat, it was created by a guy. It's kind of based on like a military special forces hat, and it's Velcro, and it would take patches from all the countries in the world we go. So if I go to Nigeria, I just change the patch. If I go to Afghanistan, I change the patch. And it seemed
Instead, you're wearing the Pope's hat.
Well, the reason I wear the socks hat is actually for the Pope. But I guess about a year ago, I just said, I don't want to wear that hat anymore because it looks too much like a military hat. And I had a 550 cord rosary that I loved as a soldier. They looked like ranger beads. It's like, this is the small one. These are like, looks like Army Ranger beads. Actually, exactly like Ranger. You could use them as Ranger beads for land navigation. And I had a bigger rosary just like this from Rugged Rosary, which I love. But now I use, there's this beautiful Fulton Sheen rosary from Dr. Howard's apostolate, the Rosary of the World. It's very beautiful. And I switched because I don't even want to be reminded of war from my hat or from my rosary. This is like our Afghanistan patch from our
Mhm.
our VPP hat. And sometimes I'll wear them when I'm shamelessly plugging my organization in an interview or something. But
No shame, no shame. Plug it
now I
when you're
wear this
feeding
hat.
people, when you're feeding vulnerable people. Well, I mean,
No,
the White Sox are kind of vulnerable right now. They're like the second worst team
I
in the
say
league,
that to
so they
people.
are kind of vulnerable.
Last season, when I wore this hat, I could tell who the MLB fans were when I walked through airports because they would look at me and laugh.
I know. They're like, you're really wearing
And
that?
laugh.
I'm a Milwaukee fan. We're number one in the majors, at least for now. So let's hope they stay there on October 31st.
Yeah, I love
So
Milwaukee too.
I, yeah,
Milwaukee is one of the best. There's a restaurant there called Three Brothers that was founded by these three Serbian brothers that were in Stalin and Hitler concentration camps and made it to Milwaukee. It's great. Still there. Great restaurant.
you'll have to tell me when we go off the air
Three
what it is,
Brothers.
because
Yeah, Milwaukee is one of the coolest.
I'll be there again in a month.
Yeah.
So, I know I could talk to you all day about what you're doing. It's just so rich with the love of God. But in terms of cameras, they barely will let you get water in to feed people. Are you even able to get cameras in to film some of this? I mean, in case you wanted to
Oh
make
yeah. If you
another
go to the Vulnerable
documentary.
People Project website or go to our Instagram, you can see all of our deliveries. We're very meticulous in sharing our deliveries. Now, a lot of communities don't, like the Christians, don't want to be filmed. We might show the water tank going in or the food being delivered into the church walls or grounds.
Are we going to have films of the kids in the swimming pool today?
Yes. Yeah. And, here's the sad thing, and it's something I wrestle with. You don't want to show anything.
Because they'll kill them.
I feel it's a bit exploitative and invasive when you're having to share people's sufferings and their indignity, where you're showing orphan children in their indignity. And then it's something that I feel very uncomfortable with. But it's this choice. Do I inspire empathy and tell their stories and save lives? And so we really try to moderate how much, we show. And we have a lot more that we don't show. And we never do kind of the sad videos. We really want to show people laughing and
The humanity.
humanity of it all. Like, so for this Kids Day, tomorrow I'm going to get the videos, and I really can't wait to see it because we're going to have clowns, like I said, murals. And if you see our shave ice delivery from last week, these kids are just really laughing. The clown is really good. And the kids are just so joyful. They're ecstatic, actually. You could see for a minute, like for moments, we brought them out of their place and their experience, and they're just singing and dancing. And it's really something. Like, I've never seen kids smile like this. And I see my apostolate through the eyes of a father. It was launched by a father who couldn't protect his child, me. And my revenge is I'm going to help other fathers protect their children. And even if those fathers have passed, I say there's no more. I see that I'm a partner with dads. So when I'm giving shave ice to orphan children in Gaza, I'm doing that for their father. I'm the vicar of their dad. I'm the seat father. I am there as their father's representative. Just 2 weeks ago, I sent my daughter and my assistant to visit a young, beautiful friend of mine who is a Yazidi victim of ISIS. She's a wonderful young woman. And can you believe she was a prisoner of ISIS, abused by ISIS? Her village was destroyed. She lost most of her family, her brothers, and her father. And when I first met her, I told her, I'm your brother. Whatever you need, ask. But she doesn't ask a lot. And I found out she had bought a house. So she comes here now, she plucks chickens or something like this in Nebraska. What a hard job, A Yazidi girl alone in America plucking chickens. And she somehow managed to buy herself a house, a small house in a bad neighborhood, very tiny house in a rough neighborhood. If there are rough neighborhoods in Lincoln, it's not the best neighborhood. But because her mortgage and her cost of living was so high, I found out she didn't have a pillow. She didn't have a blanket. She had one cup, one spoon, one fork, one knife, a little fridge. And so my family, and so I sent my daughter, my assistant, and we went and we bought her couches and a bed and bed frame. And so my daughter and my assistant decked the whole house out. This is how I see my work. Why am I helping this young woman? I said, I'm not helping you really. I'm helping your dad because your dad can't be here right now. There's no more vulnerable father than the father of an orphan. He's not here. He's passed. So, but I'm here for him.
And you
That's how
really
I.
are doing what the Bible says,
That's why when people see
the
like they
orphans and the
strange,
widows.
why is he bringing shave ice into Gaza? Well, why are clowns and coloring books going into Gaza? Beach balls in a swimming pool. We're putting in a swimming pool and a gravel truck.
Because should they always have tears or they ever allowed smiles?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly. Hope
God
is
bless you.
as
Hope,
important as calories.
as the Bible says, hope never disappoints. Hope never disappoints. And one of those young men, and I'm going to speak it into reality, one of those children, one of those young men or women is going to grow up and they're going to be something bigger. They're going to be the president of that country. They're going to be a CEO. They're going to be a priest, a
You
bishop, or a
imagine
pope. And they're
a
going to
future
say,
president or
the
pope, and I
vulnerable, that's
picture
right, the
of him with
Vulnerable
that
People Project.
because it says VPP on the shave ice. I would love that. That would see. Look, I'm so shameless. And Saint Escriva, the founder of Opus Dei, calls for holy shamelessness. But I'm so shameless. Like I'm like, if I ever won a big award, I would just be happy because I could fundraise more efficiently for my work to serve. If I had a picture of a future pope, I mean, I'll be passed. If the next future director of VPP has a picture of a future pope eating shave ice with VPP on it when he was a kid, fighting for his life, the development director in the future is going to have a good time with that. That's going to be very useful.
That
you
would
know,
be awesome.
yeah. But here's the thing too. They're all creatures made in the image and likeness of God. And and I hope most of these kids, obviously all of them, because of the Christian community so small and insular, it's taking care of itself. These orphans are Muslims. And Pope Benedict talked about ecumenical activity should always end in us proclaiming Jesus Christ. And, VPP does not proselytize in the sense that we don't go in there and like we're not
Hand them a
passing
Bible and then just
zones, but they know we're a Catholic apostolate very well. They know why we're doing what we're doing. It's the love of Jesus Christ. And so that's something I'm hopeful to always, that everyone we serve knows that it's Jesus Christ that's serving them.
yeah. I know I should end. Let me look at my clock here. Yeah, I should end. But I want to ask you, is there like one story besides like that woman, one more person that you saw and you're like, this makes it all worth it? A
Oh
child
my
and adult.
There's so many stories. I wouldn't want to leave anyone behind, but I will say I can give
Tell
you.
me one and put the rest in a movie.
Okay, well, this one kind of be a movie. So this week is the anniversary of the Abbey Gate explosion in Afghanistan, when former American allies and Christian pastors and minorities and American citizens even who were stuck in Kabul were in line to the airport, and they were lining up outside the Abbey Gate, and a bomb exploded, killing 170 Afghans, 13 Americans. Well, and actually over 500 Afghans eventually died from the injuries. There was a young woman and her husband and her sister and her mother and her baby, and they were walking to the gate, and the bomb exploded right as they reached the gate. And the grandmother was holding the baby next to her daughter, and they were blown back. The mother of the child and the sister of the daughter next to the mom and her husband were blown into the fence. The U.S. Marines grabbed the husband and wife and dragged them in, and then engaged in a firefight with ISIS. The mom and baby and sister were trampled and wounded, but they survived with the baby. The mother and father were whisked away and thrown on a plane, and the plane left. This is like bing, 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 bing. Now, they wouldn't let her out. She was begging to leave. My daughter, my baby's out there. My son's out there. My sister's out there. My mom, no. So she's here, and she ends up going to a pregnancy center for help because she's pregnant. The refugee camp actually tells her and her husband, we can't help you. You have a problem pregnancy. Go figure it out. So now you have these two Afghan refugees on the streets of America, pregnant, missing their son back home, just broken. And I get a call from a pregnancy center that they stumbled into. somehow through Loveline, through Abby Johnson's Loveline. I think they somehow found that number. And they thought I lived in Hawaii because that's where I lived most of my life,
Right.
but I actually already moved to Texas. And I was like 40 minutes from where they were. And this woman called me and said, are you Jason Jones, the producer of Bella? I said, yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know why I was told to call you, but she just knew me as Bella guy, movie guy. And she didn't know what I really do. She's like, I was told that you can help in Afghanistan. And she told me the story. And this woman was pregnant, but she was broken and her baby was suffering because of her despair. She wasn't getting enough nutrition. The mom was just dying inside. And so the baby was dying inside of the mom. And so I said, listen, where are you? And she told me, I said, I can be there in 40 minutes. I don't want to meet at the pregnancy center. Can we meet at a coffee shop? So there I am with the mom,
The pregnant mom.
the pregnant mom, the Afghan mom, and the pregnancy center worker, and the husband. And so I told her, well, can you put in my phone, in the signal thread right here, your mom's address for me for real quick? Just can you put it there? She did. And then I put, go bring baby formula, diapers, food, candy, months
To
of
this home.
supplies. Huh?
To this home. Yeah.
Home right now. Because the grandma was starving in Afghanistan. They were suffering. They had no heat. Da da da. So it's cold, very cold in Afghanistan in the winter. So by God's grace, like within hours, while we were still together, we were able to deliver months of food, baby formula, diapers during the Taliban occupation. Taliban's in full control, but we're good at our job. So we were able to do that. And the mom just couldn't believe it. And then we said, we're here for you. What do you need? They needed an apartment. They needed a car. Well, they needed their child back. They needed jobs here, here. So you got the need there, the need here. So we helped them in Afghanistan and we helped them there. But here's the great thing. By God's grace and through some friends of mine, bringing a child, a baby, a toddler from Afghanistan under Taliban control to the United States is not a thing you can do. Human trafficking, all sorts of things. You just don't send a toddler alone. And the mom couldn't go. She was pregnant. And the dad was not an SIV holder. He couldn't go. So through some of my friends at the U.S. government and through a lot of work, a year later, we were able to get the sister and the baby to the United States. And I got to be there for that. And I got to be at the airport to see the baby and the sister come running out of customs. And
The baby who's now a
all I did in my life,
wow,
that's enough. We have thousands of stories like that, from Bella babies, from our movies, Moms Choosing Life, to all these Afghans and others we've rescued. And but I remember at the time I was holding their newborn. You can
her
see,
newborn.
yeah, you can see the video on the website of the reunion. It's there.
VPP, right? We're going to go to
vulnerableproject.com.
vulnerablepeopleproject.com.
Yeah,
We'll have a link right below.
You can see me. I'm holding the baby with this big smile, and mom is like, and dad. And by the way, this man is so loving and kind to his wife. You'll hear people say, "Oh, Muslim men abuse their wives. They don't love their children and wives like we do." It's the weirdest things you hear people say. Yeah. This man and their love story and how they met, they were different ethnicities. Afghanistan is really ethnically diverse, believe it or not. Tajiks, Uzbeks, Pashtuns, of course, Hazara, Uyghur. And he kept seeing her in this office building. She worked for an NGO, and it was like love at first sight. I think he in their culture, he basically had to say, can I meet your parents? It was like that, and they're just they adore each other. And by the way, Afghans look like movie stars, so many of them, and like they're so beautiful, and their children are so beautiful, and they're so much more capable. It's just to be as a father, to serve this father. My apostle was launched because I couldn't save my own child, and here I was able to watch this father look at his wife as she grabbed her child
whom she hadn't seen in a year.
If that's all I've ever done in my life. But I hope I do more. I always tell my staff in human rights organizations, people will say, if all we did was save one life, that's enough. I'm like, we need to take saving lives as serious as McDonald's takes selling hamburgers and Ford takes selling cars. They're not happy with just one hamburger or just one car.
Yeah. Over 1 million served. Yeah.
And they are ruthless about efficiency and processes and procedures. So at VPP, I do love these stories and they do mean the world. And it is true that if that's all I ever did in my life, I'm very grateful. If all I ever did in my life was in the middle of a war, feed the descendants of the apostles' families in Gaza, or give orphans in Gaza shave ice, or rescue translators for our Green Berets, each one of those things is enough. But at VPP, we do really always want to be more efficient, to be more useful in our apostolate, which is to defend the vulnerable from violence.
Well, I think God is definitely using you to the degree that he put you on this planet to be used. My mom always said I wanted to save the world, but I know that I can only save my little slice. And it sounds like you have a bigger slice than many of us, but you're doing the mission God gave you. And I want everyone watching to be able to help you. So first of all, we actually did this show because I wanted everyone to buy your book, Dispatches from the Great Campaign. So that's probably a way you can help, because the $1 or $2 we authors get from a book.
VPPbook.com. You can buy the book, get a free book. It's for a donation, and VPP book, and then it supports our work. But you can go to Amazon or Sophia Press.
I was going to say, or Sophia. They're always the ones that are so kind as to let the authors.
By the way. Yeah, they're the best publisher, and I'm so grateful to be with them. And I'm just so grateful to be with Sophia Press. Yeah. And this book, I think for you, everyone would be very useful. I'm very envious, and I long for this day. I'm just not that great of a manager. I have to grow my organization to reduce my role. You know what I mean? And if you're an overworked executive, it's because you're not good at your job. And so I really do want to reduce my role, because I'm really envious of folks who, we can all do so much. And we all do. Like if you own the local pizza place, you're employing and training young people, and and you're making us all happy on Friday night with the pizza party at the football game. Like this is all, every one of us, whatever we are doing, it's, when we do it for the love of Christ, we're sanctifying our work, whatever it is. I wish that I had more time to play chess on Fridays at the old folks' home, that I could go back to doing prison ministry, that I could bring Toastmasters into prison, which is something I've longed to do, that I could be more of a mentor to my sons and their friends. But I think when you read my book, Dispatches from the Great Campaign, what I hope it does is, inspire you to want to live the apostolic life. And I'm embarrassed because the way I do it can be represented in a way that, it's in Gaza, it's here, it's there. But the most challenging work in the world is to pray in front of an abortion clinic or a volunteer at a pregnancy center, because it's so intimate and it's in your own community. Or to do prison ministry, which I've done. That is such a challenging ministry, but it's so important. Yeah. So there are all of these opportunities. And some of us are wrestling with a spouse with battling cancer, or we're battling struggle with mental illness, or our mother has dementia. Well, that's your apostolate. That's a big apostolate. So sometimes,
and some of you just have toddlers, and you need to take care of your toddlers. You need to form their minds. You need to prepare them for this battlefield that we are on. You need to get them to heaven. Do not look at Jason Jones and think, he's doing something I'm not. No, you get the privilege of forming the mind, the soul, and the conscience of another human being. And you will have to answer to God for that. So do that apostolate the best as you can. So I could talk to you forever. I want everyone. So in the show notes, we're going to have Vulnerable People Project, where you can see Jason's films. You can get his books. Again, I always want to promote Sophia Institute. I have a link to them because they are the ones that published the book. But if you can donate money to the Vulnerable People Project, go into there and find out what are the other ways that you can help. And I know some of you want to be the boots on the ground. So perhaps Jason will let you know how you can be a boot on the ground in an area that needs you. Can we find you anywhere? Just if people want to find you, read your
I have a
stuff, is that
podcast, The Jason Jones Show, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're relaunching it into being a video podcast next week. So
good?
there's that. You know
So you
how
have to
hard
put your lipstick on now.
yeah, how is it?
I know. It
I
looks good.
have to shave
She
regularly.
might have to shave. No, don't shave.
I have to shave, which I don't do. So, but yeah, and also on Instagram and X at the Jason Jones Show. My Substack, I just started it, but it's kind of taken off.
Oh,
It's
good. Okay.
great because I can say what I want. I can write as long or as short as I want. And so
And we'll
yeah,
have links to all of that right here in the show notes. So just find the place that you want to click and get Jason. Share this show with your friends and your family. I always say we may not have the words. You always, people say, "Well, I can't say it the way you can." Well, then share the show. Let them feel, as Jason said at the beginning, the empathy. Well, I see and feel his empathy, his stories. Let pass that on so someone else can understand the dignity of other human beings through his eyes, through what he's seen, through what his people have seen. Help in any way you can, and the most powerful way you can help is by praying. Active conscious prayer. I know every Christian says it on their show, but I actually want you to say with your mouth for the Vulnerable People Project in your daily prayers. Put them on a bead of your rosary. Do the big thing, because that's when you're really fighting the demons. And say a prayer for me in my ministry as well. I would covet that. breakfastwithbacon.com. Find all my things. Go to my social media things. They're all in the show notes as well. So I don't want to cut the show off, but I have to. So I think that's it. Now, I haven't told you today how we end the show. I did tell you yesterday. So we're going to see if you remember that from yesterday. He's probably thinking, oh, dear, what is it? Okay.
catechism quiz.
Okay.
Is it
You
a
think you
catechism?
remember? No, here, let's try it. Let's see if you
Oh,
remember. My
say
name
the
is
Hail Mary.
Dr. Christine Bacon. You've
Oh
been watching Breakfast with Bacon, and I want to remind you always to live your life. Do you remember from
no,
yesterday?
no,
Sunny side up.
I love that. You're
Say
right.
it. Say it.
Always live your life sunny side up.
That's it.